And so Mr. Hill is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Waters. Thanks for having this hearing, and I want to thank the witnesses for being here. What a treat to have the full commission before the committee, and I certainly want to thank all of you for the public service you are doing and continuing in the 85-year tradition of the SEC of protecting investors and maintaining our remarkable capital formation across all of our markets. It's been a very interesting discussion this morning. I want to just tick down, as my friend from Colorado did, a few things of interest. I, too, want to associate myself with Mr. Sherman and Mr. Luetkemeyer on demonstrating leadership in the regulatory system about FASB proposals when they didn't even follow FASB's own rules under their pronouncements on how to bring that rule forward. So thank you for that discussion. I, too, have constituents who suffered mightily at the hands of Sir Alan and the Sanford Ponzi scheme. So that led me last week to support the co-cash clarification that came before our committee from Mr. McAdams. I'm not sure I'm keen on 14 years, but that was the compromise. I think 10 years is probably more in keeping with the tradition under these kinds of frauds. But I definitely appreciate his leadership on defining fine versus disgorgement versus restitution, which all 9 justices couldn't figure out. So I appreciate that. I also want to compliment Mr. Scott on financial literacy. Dr. Foster and I have been leaders on financial literacy bills in Congress. We support that wholeheartedly. And in Arkansas, we have Economics Arkansas, so we're proud to be one of those 17 states that, in fact, encourages economic curricula for our kids. Commissioner Peirce referenced CAT, the Consolidated Audit Trail. I, too, have concerns about that. I was very concerned about Rick Ketchum and FINRA's proposal to do the cards proposal 4 years ago. This is just turning the card over, and it's a picture of a cat. It's all the same issue, which is, does government need to micromanage and have every trade for every person every day, when you already have the authority, in my view, at the Commission, to look for trades under your market regulation, market surveillance functions with the power that you have now. So I'm not a fan of cats as I was not a fan of cards. During this Congress, we've had a lot of discussion about capital formation, and it's interesting, and corporate governance, both in the committee over the past 9 months. Almost every proposal drives up costs of compliance and drives up costs of preparing a 10Q or a 10K for investors. And I find that frustrating because for the prior 10 years, this committee from both sides of the aisle talked about how do we maintain transparency, maintain materiality, maintain important information for investors, but lower accounting costs, lower disclosure costs. How do we get at lowering officer and director liability, corporate liability expenses? How do we lower the costs associated with going public from a market reg point of view? So I'm concerned that we're going in the wrong directions in the debates here, and I urge the Commission to use your economic analysis, your cost-benefit and power that you have, to be focused on lowering the cost of being a public company, reduce barriers, and let's not blame Reg D streamlining in the 1990s for why we have fewer public companies. Let's embrace more of the Jobs Act and Jobs 3.0 approach. This slide I wanted to put up because over the last few days there's been a lot of conversation about this Business Roundtable report, this release back in August, and those on the left jumped on screaming victory that, by God, they had cowered the Fortune 200 into doing things their way to have a more socially sensitive boardroom. Those on the right screamed bloody murder that, oh my gosh, we're going to abandon shareholder returns. And then this morning on CNBC, my old pal Nell Minow postulated a new cynical theory for the BRT release, which is that because CEOs can't maximize earnings anymore because they can't buy their stock back, now they're going to tie earnings to some of these social goals. I put this up from 1992. This was our publicly traded company in Little Rock, where we had shareholders, customers, and bankers all priorities of our company in the communities we serve to do what? Drive financial performance. And we were a top-rated, top-performing bank holding company. I don't think the BRT change was that big a deal.